SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Hi, this is Chris Keem with Cannon Ford Lincoln. Forget about the tariffs raising prices. Ford Motor Company has lowered prices. Employee pricing across the board on Ford and Lincoln products. Come see us at Cannon Ford Lincoln. When the smoke clears, nobody beats a Cannon deal. Nobody.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
You know, I really should get out organized before we start, shouldn't I?
Why would you do that? Then it's not live, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to go with it adds to the mystique and not Dave's a procrastinator. We'll go there. Good morning and welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross, without Richard Cross on this Friday morning. Dave Hughes back with you as always on Friday. My buddy Lance Tolbert in the booth. How you doing this morning, sir?
Man, I braved the nice storm that blew through last night about midnight. It had quite a bit of hail with it. And I was laying in the bed sound asleep, and I hear all this stuff hitting the window. And you're like, what in the world's going on? And still in a sleepy stupor. And I went, oh, God, I left my windows down. So I jump up half naked, in my sleeping attire, run out, open the door, and I get pelted with marbles of ice. And I'm like, what in the world? So I had to go get dressed, go to the car, roll the windows up. I had about a whole ice tray worth of hail in my seat. And so, I scraped all that out pretty quick. And it's about midnight, and I was like, I'll deal with this in the morning. By the time I got back to the door, it was all gone. Oh, it was over. So, yeah, it blew through. Hail about marble size, pelted everything, including me. And then, said, see you later. So I didn't notice any damage this morning, but it was a vicious storm that blew through. I hope everybody's okay this morning. So.
On behalf of everyone on planet Earth, I would like to thank you for giving us the mental image of naked Lance at midnight being pelted with marbles.
Partial. I mean, I was partially clothed, but it was one of those you wake up and you don't really know where you are, what you're doing, why, everything's happening. And then it sinks in that, you've left your windows down in a rainstorm. So, yeah, reality hits quick sometimes, Didn't have enough time to really, put the suit and tie on and get out there. But, yeah, I was clothed enough that if any neighbors had the same problem where they went, oh, my God, my windows are down, I wouldn't have been flashing them or anything. So,
well, going to be back down in the 40s tonight because of the cold front that pushed that front through the state, which means that spring is delayed again. Yeah, well, yeah. I guess technically this is spring, but it just, I don't know. We are completely discombobulated in terms of weather. I am,
anyway.
It's
all over the place, man. I mean, thank goodness the pollen has subsided somewhat because that had gotten pretty epic there for a minute or two. And I haven't seen it quite as bad lately, but yeah, the rain keeps it coming, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And one thing, we've been talking, and I've said this before, that Tornado Alley is no longer in the Midwest. We need to quit referring to that. Tornado Alley is in the Mid-South and the southeastern United States. Well, we got to narrow it down a bit more thanks to AccuWeather this week. I don't know if you saw this. AccuWeather put out a graphic with each of the states on there showing the number of tornadoes last year from January 1st through March 31st, and this year. 2 graphics. Last year, in the first 3 months, in the first quarter, the state of Mississippi had 7, count them, 7 tornadoes. This year, number 1 in the country with 78. It's not a little increase.
Yeah, that's not the trophy you want.
Put it like this. We have had, in the first 3 months of this year, 78 tornadoes in Mississippi. Second place in America is Alabama with 41. Just a hair over half as many as Mississippi has had. It's not even close for second place. Mississippi, are Tornado Alley.
Yeah, by far. I mean, 1965, this was the day where America was stunned by the Palm Sunday tornado outbreak. There were 40 tornadoes that struck the Midwest, killing more than 270 people, injuring more than 1,000 and causing more than $5 billion in damage. And that was way back in 1965. So that was Tornado Alley.
Yes.
Now it's much further south. I think you're nailing it there.
They have moved it. And one other little piece of information that I have, you think, oh, yeah, well, we had a bunch, but they weren't that bad. Number one, there's a line of people that will form quickly in Walthall County down here in southwest Mississippi to have a word with you about that, if that's what you think. But only 2 states in America so far have had an EF4 tornado, Arkansas, and you guessed it, Mississippi. So we not only have the most, we have the worst.
I was driving north in the Delta last Sunday and was behind one of the mule trains of electrical and power professionals in the big rigs, and there was probably 15 of them heading north toward Rolling Fork. When they didn't turn, at our road, I was like, whew. I mean, because we just got done rebuilding the cabin from the 2022, 2023 Rolling Fork tornadoes. So
23.
Yeah, 23. Yeah,
I think it was 23.
So yeah, it was. You don't wish that on anyone, and to see them heading north, and 10 or 15 of them, that they're going to fix things that the weather and terrible weather has caused, and then not to mention, you've got potential flooding that'll happen this season, likely off the river with all the rain that has happened up in the Midwest as well. It's been pretty damp up there, so yeah, it looks like we'll have a pretty day today. I mean, all things considered, if you got through that last night and didn't have any problems, should have a pretty day today, though.
You talking about the flooding? We've got Mayor George Flaggs coming on with us in the 8 o'clock hour to talk about Vicksburg, because all of the towns along the Mississippi River are having to deal with that right now. The river's shooting up.
Oh, it is. It's moving up quick. I can tell you, going over there and getting into the soup bowl of the South Delta, you can see, quickly how fast those crops, even the ones that have just been planted not long ago, the standing water in the fields, and you go, 20 miles north, you don't really have quite as much of an issue as you get up toward Rolling Fork. But that southern part, buddy, it's like a bowl, and when the water gets in there, it's there. And you still farm a good bit in there, not nearly as much as, the middle delta and the northern part, but a lot of folks will be affected if you get water in there again. And we had it up to the bottom of the cabin, which is about 8 feet. And it sat in there for about 7 or 8 months in that big one, when everybody was worried about it because, and I understand, it was just something else. So I'm hoping we don't have anything like that again, because the conditions are out there with all the rain and the water coming down the river that you just really never know. You just got to prepare.
Well, and that does bring to mind a question, which I think has an easy answer. Which one is worse, flooding or droughts? For the farmers, they might argue with you back and forth on that one a bit, but for me, a drought doesn't wreck the carpet in the den. No. And so there are more widespread problems from flooding, I would think.
There are. And there are so many people that probably, don't have insurance, that are in hunting camps or, or don't have the need for it, may have smaller places, like trailers and things. And you know, that ruined, because I can tell you, once that water gets in there, it is rough. And that's not anything you want to see in an area where you have, crops growing. That is production that is gone. And if I remember, the big one, that water stayed in there for a long time.
Yes.
It didn't come in and go out like it usually does. It was there. And that was ruinous. And you don't want to see that for the farmers, especially with the conditions that we know have happened with our farmers and the little help they're getting at times. So
farmers are having enough problems.
Yeah, we don't need to add more.
Let's not let Mother Nature pile on in the middle of this. They've got their hands full already on a good sunny day with no rain and no water standing in the soybean field. Yeah. They got enough to worry with. Let's not make it worse, but of course, we have no control over that.
I feel confident in this administration administering, aid as needed and as it should be. The last one, and not trying to pick on Biden and them, but man, what a disaster when it came to getting funds to people that needed them. You had the California wildfires. You had the tornadoes and flooding in the Carolinas, and that's just one. We have the train derailment.
Yes,
that was so long ago, people have forgotten about it. But
up in New Palestine,
and so many disasters that hit under that administration that we don't know if we have the funding. Where'd it go?
I do have to back up on what you were saying there for just a second. Why wouldn't you want to poke fun at the Biden administration?
Nobody knows where he is.
That was the biggest clown car we've ever seen in Washington.
Yeah. The guy, I don't even know where he is at this point. But yeah, I mean, I probably should be a little bit more take advantage of the opportunities that are granted at times. But yeah, just trying to be polite early in the morning. But man, the handling of the American disasters that we've had were terrible, absolutely terrible. And I hope to the good Lord, if we have any of these problems, that Trump will be there for them.
I think you'll see a very different response to things. But I will also say, if you're not sure where President Biden is now, former President Biden, that gives you, something in common with former President Biden.
You got that right.
Just call it what it is, man. Let's call it what it is. We continue on mornings on this Friday morning. Up next, keep it here.
From the Venable.
Start your day right.
Good morning, America. How are you?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're in cold water, and we're in too deep. Yeah, we're in cold water. Say we in too deep.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi mornings on a Friday morning. Dave Hughes, and as usual on a Friday, a lot of stuff going on, and we will... Next hour. Let's get into this next. I do not want to start the morning with this.
We got fun stuff to talk about for a minute.
Yeah,
we have a big birthday this morning. You know who it is?
Okay, good. Distract me from what I need to talk about.
Yeah, I didn't say it. I played a little music that may give you a hint on whose birthday it is today. But we have a kind of a fairly famous fellow that works here with us a little bit. Name of Steve Azar, 61 years old today. First gained attention with an independent album way back in 1996. Took him a little while to get that first hit, a few years, but I Don't Have to Be Me Till Monday. Played that one on the way out. Little Cedric Burnside with Steve Azar, and Cold Water on the way in. Happy birthday, our guy Steve Azar. Mississippi loves you. Thank you for everything you do for us, for Super Talk. You are absolutely one of the best there is, man.
Well, and I want to tell you something, too, about Steve. He's extremely talented and does fantastic work for the state and for us, for that matter, but he's just a good guy.
Oh, yeah.
If you get around him, if you talk to him for any amount of time, he is a lovely fellow.
Well, and he has got a bunch of great hats, too.
Yes,
like Richard Cross collects jackets. Like I collect socks with a hole in them. Richard's got the jackets. Azar's got the hats. I don't know. I mean, that's but his hats are legit, and he's a snazzy dresser too. Dude can play a little bit also. So, and he's got a nice golf swing. I mean, this Azar guy.
I haven't seen.
No, well, we've got a commercial with him on it, so I get to see it every day, 10 times a day. I'm like, man, that's a pretty good golf swing there, Steve. Yeah, might want to hit the tour, baby. But no, happy birthday, Steve. It is an honor to know you and to get to work with you, sir.
And let me just say, at 61 years old, he does not look a day over 60.
No, I'm 50, and he looks 40. I mean, it's 60. I can't. I hope I have that kind of swag when I'm 61, 62 years old, man.
Here's what I can't figure out. He's 61. I'm 57. Why does he look so much better than me? I'm younger. I'm supposed to look better. I don't.
It's something in that Delta blood he's got,
Yeah.
Plus, the music, maybe the music is like his tonic. I don't know.
I even eat a steady supply of catfish, so that can't be it. It can't be dietary.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Is that Delta Air?
Yeah, Delta Air and water and DNA. A couple of other. Let's go with the fun things that happened on this day. We talked about the Palm Sunday tornado outbreak back in '65. You also had the first African American ump in '66, Emmett L. Ashford. He debuted on this day, 1 week after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this day in '68. LBJ signed the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and that was a pretty big deal. The Apple I was created. It was demonstrated about a year. Well, it says the following July, but it was opened up in 1976. The Apple I computer, and the first baby that was produced from a frozen embryo was delivered by cesarean section over there down under in Melbourne, Australia. That was back in 1984. Actually remember that. That was a big deal,
It was a big deal. I don't know if you heard about the big deal we had in the last week or two. Well, it actually happened at the end of February, but they just revealed it.
They had a gender reveal?
No. Had a new womb reveal. A woman over in the UK, first person, she gave birth with a transplanted uterus and womb.
Wow.
She was born with some sort of medical condition, and it's 17 syllables long, the name of it. And her uterus didn't fully develop. Her womb didn't fully develop. Her sister had 2 kids and said, you know what? You can have mine. And they took her sister's uterus and womb out and transplanted it to her. And then they did IVF. She got pregnant. She gave birth at the end of February. The baby is healthy and fine. She's healthy and fine. Never happened before.
That's something else. And I mean, the advancements in science, especially with those types of things, you can think of, back when you and I were young, I mean, a baby born premature by a couple of months was not a good thing. And I've been in the neonatal wards, even a decade or so ago. And those little things aren't as big as your hand. And they live to have long lives. And it's just one of those amazing things about, when man really puts his mind to something, what he can accomplish.
Yeah, when we quit focusing on the nonsense and focus on the important things like this, miracles happen.
Yeah, it is. It's something else. I had a friend of mine worked in the neonatal side right after her getting the nursing degree, and I'd always ask her, I was like, man, that seems like that would be so difficult. And she said, well, you do lose some of them, but seeing the ones and the multitude and the great majority that make it, and especially from the type of births a lot of them had. You had some that were like parents or the mother might have been a crack addict or had other issues and things, but watching those little things blossom into, a full-size baby in no time flat because you have the love and the care, the technology and the resources to make that happen. It's just heartwarming. And like I said, I wish man would figure out what's important, focus the effort where it should be because, human life is sacred. And sometimes I think we take it a little bit for granted. But seeing those little babies like that, it kind of puts it into perspective. It's almost like you're looking at a kitten. They're so small, if they turn into a human.
Yeah, if you can look at one of those babies and you don't feel anything in your heart, you're broken.
I agree 100%. And that's my little soapbox today on that kind of stuff. But it was interesting because I do remember that way back in 84. I was in high school. I was like, what are they even talking about? What is this technology we're talking about?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that sounds cool. Next thing you know, we'll have cloned people. And hoping that didn't happen. But
no, the next thing that happened was we had Dolly the cloned sheep.
And that was the next one, wasn't it? Yeah, I think that was the next big thing. Well, let's see here if there was any other big stuff. Yeah, I mean, with a name like Alessandra Ambrosio, you're going to be a supermodel probably. It just you don't have a choice.
Either that or you're working on the weekends for big tips. That's your 2 options with that name.
There you go. That's right. And also Oleg Cassini, people may remember the great fashion designer. He particularly became popular as a designer for Jacqueline Kennedy while she was the First Lady of the United States, the Jackie look. That was becoming highly influential and much admired during that time period, and really launched Mr. Cassini into a whole other stratosphere of fame. But I was watching something the other day, kind of looking back on the early part of the presidency of Kennedy and how important the look was. You know, how important, you know, his hair and the perfect teeth and the wife and the family. And it was so set up to be so, you know, just right. And then you had a fashion designer that had locked on, and you know, everything was just so perfect and made for TV. We're not like that anymore, really, I don't think. And maybe that was one of the last presidents where you really had that pomp and circumstance surrounding, you know, the presidency and the First Lady and the children and all this. I think it's kind of become much less in the spotlight the family has over the years. But I remember the Oleg Cassini Jackie look.
Well, right now in this administration, this brand new administration, we got a pretty good crop up there. We've got some interesting subplots and storylines all involved. The previous administration was a Naked Gun movie.
Yeah. But, you know, and the thing is, it's the way you frame it, though, isn't it? I mean, you know, the media framed Kennedy, and so many presidents for that is this, you know, elite and, you know, protected class. And now it's basically gloves off, let's go after them. Let's talk bad about their kids and whatever you want to say. Free game now. And again, I'm not saying that we need to go back to some level of the, you know, the Kennedy era or anything, but there should be a little more dignity, I think, in how the press handles both sides, whether it be Republican or Democrat. I think the family should be off limits, unless they're in obviously, you know, positions where they've been appointed. But, you know, sometimes I think the media can take it a little bit too far, you know.
They do all the time.
Yeah, it's not a lot of decorum involved anymore at times.
We are a culture of extremes.
Yeah.
You take anything, and I see posts online all the time on X, on Facebook, on everywhere. Somebody can post, I really like fresh buttered toast, where the toast is hot and the butter just melts when you spread it on there. I love it. There will be a comment about Trump within the first three comments.
Yeah, Trump, we're not getting butter. We're not going to get butter anymore. Well, and circling back, Ethel Kennedy passed in 2024. She would have been 97 years old today. Widow of Robert F. Kennedy. Was at his side when he was assassinated in 1968. Mother of 11 children, and she never remarried. Can you imagine raising 11 kids on your own after seeing your husband executed right in front of you?
I think I feel justified in saying this. We don't make them like that anymore. We really don't. We continue on a Friday morning as we barrel right towards the weekend on Mornings Without Richard Cross on a Friday. Keep it here.
Good morning. Good morning to you there.
Okay, up and at 'em. Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. SuperTalk Mississippi Mornings on a Friday morning. Richard out on Fridays as always. Dave Hughes here. As we continue on, you know, I was previewing, Lance, you know, next segment, as always, we have the Mississippi lottery numbers and winners and information. We got, even compared to a normal week, we got a lot to get through this morning in that segment. The winners.
It has been lit all week, man, with some big winners. A lot of numbers, too. I mean, as far as people winning.
Yeah.
Loaded down.
It's dense, I think is the word I'm looking for. But that's what you're looking for in a list of winners.
Like a good pound cake. Very dense.
Yes. Oh, I love a good pound cake.
Hey, yesterday was the second of 2 croissant days. The first one is like January 30th or something like that. And I think that's more for like a traditional pastry croissant. But yesterday was kind of the sweet croissant. And, man, I partook, you know. I had the chocolate croissant. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Today may be, and we had a great bit of insight is probably, like you said, the superior catfish diet of Azar that keeps him so young. So I may have to implement that in my diet today for lunch and dinner.
Highly recommend it.
Man, I tell you what, I love fried catfish. I don't know about you, but that's fried chicken and fried catfish. If there's anything more truly Southern and Mississippi, I want to know what it is. Like, I know a turnip green. I'm talking about a meat. That I love those two, though, man. It's something else.
Well, you are apparently a combination of my wife and I, because she will eat fried chicken every day. I will eat fried catfish every day.
I'd take both, just put them both on the same plate and let's roll.
I will live off of fried catfish. I kind of have, in a way. So, yeah.
Kind of have, yeah. I hear you. We had a beautiful picture yesterday from one of our listeners. He had been out bass fishing and he'd caught a monster. But, I eat those too, folks. I love crappie, love bass. I'll eat anything you pull out of these lakes, just about. I've even had some gar. It's not bad, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it's not bad.
See, we always just cut the line because the gar wasn't worth the trouble. Those teeth will rip you to shreds.
They'll smile at you, won't they? Goodness gracious.
Yeah, while they're eating your finger, they'll smile at you.
I love when I be fishing in the Delta and one of those little gators, little 2 or 3 footers, just kind of going around with me, smiling at me. You see the teeth, shining, and then you catch a gar, and you're like, all right, which one is worse or better? I'm not quite sure here, but you want the gator to come eat the gar for you, so you just don't have to mess with it.
Yes, never had that. Now, I grew up in a family of fishermen, and I ate my fill of crappie. We called them white perch.
Yeah, I love the white perch. I'll eat as many of those as you can fry. We usually have a pretty nice fish fry once or twice at the camp, and it's a pretty big camp. So but we have some guys that really are good at it, that fry the fish. And I remember, it must have been a year or two ago, we ate so much of the fish. I mean, we had like thousands of fillets and everything. You cook all those, and you go, all right, everybody's still hungry. When you start breaking out the superior catfish, and I saw them coming out with the boxes, I'm like, these guys, I love it. They had no idea that I knew what superior catfish is, but I was sitting there going, that's what I'm talking about right there. Boxes of this beautiful superior catfish coming out, and we ate every bit of it. I mean, it's not ever, whether you got 50 or 100 people, it's all getting eaten.
Oh, yeah.
There's no leftovers, So
No.
So this is fish fry season, man. I mean, if y'all got one coming up and within 7-8 hours of where we are, give me a day's notice, and I'll see if Will let me out. And
we'll
show y'all how to eat it.
Lance and I will show up, and I'll go ahead and warn you, both of us, the elbows fly when we're getting into the catfish, so you might want to back up a step or two.
You got that right, buddy. Hey, and
wait
by the
your
way,
turn. Eventually, we will get full.
And like you said, earlier we were talking about Richard's off on Fridays. What a work week for the guy. He was over at 3 days at the Masters, comes back and works hard on a Thursday. Then gets to hang out in Oxford all weekend doing baseball games, Ole Miss and Tennessee. So, folks, you're going to get to listen to Cross on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday doing the Ole Miss and Tennessee games. So if you didn't get enough on that one day he was here, you can go catch him doing his play-by-play. Or actually, he's the main man, yes.
Yes, and, I made the joke with Alex yesterday talking to her, said, I'm glad he's getting a break from that grueling one-day schedule on SuperTalk this week.
Well, and how hard is baseball, really? I mean, you get to sit there in a covered, press box. You got all the goodies in front of you, people bowing to you, bringing you food, and all you got to do is sit there like you're on the back porch and talk to your buddy about baseball for 3 hours. Come on, that's got it. I mean, now basketball, that's different. You got to work there. But baseball, there's enough time to play Parcheesi in between a pitch sometimes, so you could just sit there and have a conversation.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got so much time. I've called baseball. I've called football. I've called just about everything in my career. And baseball was always my favorite because you say, and a little bit outside, ball one. So, Bob, what'd you do this weekend? Hey, you got 45 seconds to kill minimum at that point.
I think they sped up the pitch clock mainly to shut up the broadcasters. They talk about
wouldn't surprise me.
The game is too long now. They got tired of hearing about what old Joe over here did a week ago or something, because that's what it is. I mean, it is definitely a walk in the park.
Well, our go-to, and I used to go around and do sports with Robbie Hamilton down here in Southwest Mississippi. You knew you were listening to a baseball broadcast when you heard more about the sausage dogs than you did the game.
Man, I'm going to tell you, though, that's one of my favorite things about baseball is the different parks all over the country, the different style hot dog or brat or whatever. I didn't sign a contract after college, and I traveled around for about 2 weeks on a bus. It was about a 2-week bus tour with a team that I thought my elbow was killing me, and I was like, I don't want to sign a contract and not be able to perform at the level I wanted to. And so I rode around with those guys for a couple of weeks on the bus and had a blast and went all the way like to West Virginia, all over Ohio, and where the greatest hot dogs in the world are. But you'd pull up and, I wasn't like playing. I was just kind of deciding if I wanted to do this. And, I said, each of the parks I went to, the first thing I did was I'd go up into the stands and find the brat guy, and I'd get about 3 or 4 of them and go sit down there on the bench and just eat up 3 or 4 brats. I'm like, I've never had anything this good in my life. And they would, boil them in the beer or whatever it is. It was like a beer. Oh, it's amazing. Throw the little onions on there. But that was something to me. I kind of took that on as I moved forward in life for 30 years. Any park I go to, especially baseball, I'm going to get as many hot dogs or brats as I can possibly eat. The bank's broke. Even when I go to my nephew's games, these little 15, 16-year-old games, I'm eating 2 or 3 dogs, man. That's dinner.
That's called priority.
That's prioritizing. But, Hey, one interesting thing in sports, though, and we kind of covered a couple of things randomly through the week. There's not a whole lot of news, in the sports world right now, but you do have the draft coming up, and, we mentioned who is looking to be positioned. Shedeur Sanders, some folks are saying he may go to either the Giants or to the Saints. Be interesting, but more local flavor here with Jackson Dart, quarterback Ole Miss. Mel Kiper projecting him to in the 26th pick to the Los Angeles Rams. And that'd be a good fit for him. He'd have a little opportunity to sit the bench maybe for a little while behind a Matthew Stafford, learn some stuff, and maybe move into an heir apparent type of role. But that's one of the ones I wanted to cover as we move forward because Dart had a great career at Ole Miss, and love to see him get into that first round and get with a team that can kind of settle him in, because Ole Miss quarterbacks, even though there have been some really good ones recently, haven't really had that impact in the NFL that you would so desire. So for whatever reason, but looks like Jackson's going to be getting an opportunity potentially to go to a good team, maybe have an opportunity to learn and play in a very dynamic offense too. So should be interesting.
Well, that's the ideal situation. Yeah. Come in, spend a couple of years, get your feet under you, figure out, how this game works, because it is a different game at the pro level even than it is at the college level. Every level you go up, the game changes a little bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of get him in the swing of things before they turn him loose. That's the ideal situation. If we can, see it work out that way, it would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and you got Mississippi State taking on Alabama this weekend. Should be a big series for Mississippi State. Kind of right there on the brink of destruction, or whether you can pull this thing back in. Plenty of talent. Then get that Friday night established. Pico Khan's an excellent pitcher. You got to win that first one in most cases. But State has won. Had a good weekend. I know we'll get the debates on, South Carolina isn't any good. Look, brothers, there's going to be a lot of SEC teams that have terrible records that get into a regional this year. It's a good league. But State has Alabama. That will be starting at 6 o'clock. Hopefully weather obviously will be permitting. And that storm that blew through last night went on and blew through Tuscaloosa and is gone. I know Dixon does not want to hear anything about rain right now.
No.
It's like a month and a half of this. So hopefully we'll have a great weekend ahead in the form of baseball. And then Southern Miss obviously back on the diamond this weekend, having a solid season. And, had a little ugly couple games, though, but I'd expect him to rebound. Playing a really good Texas State team, though. So you can't really rule out anything like that, especially on the road. Playing in San Marcos, that game will start at 6 o'clock also today. And that'll kind of round out what I got. We talked about the Tennessee and Ole Miss series. Richard will be on that call. The first 2 games are streamed, and then the Sunday game, I believe, is network. So there you go.
Very good. And I will say you were exactly right. Dixon does not want to see bad weather. No. He got so fed up last weekend. I could tell.
Yeah, there was steam coming out of ears.
I've known Dixon since the early 80s. We go way back in this business. So I know him pretty well. Got one. He was so tired of sending out alert emails on the various games. He just spelled it "lurt"
on
one of them.
I'm done with this.
Baseball alert. Yeah, I was like, yep, he's done. He's ready to go home. Don't blame him one bit. When we come back, how rich are you? Well, you might bump that ranking up a bit with the right moves. We'll get the numbers from the lottery next.
From the Venable
Wake up! Wake up! Rise and shine!
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Nice early morning surprise.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
As usual, exactly the right bumper, because a lot of money floating around out there with the Mississippi Lottery. Let's get right into it, because I'm not really sure we're going to be able to finish all of this. The Lotto America, first off, no jackpot winner on Wednesday's drawing. Those numbers were 12, 19, 30, 42, 46. The Star Ball was 7, and the All-Star Bonus multiplier was 2. The jackpot for tomorrow night's drawing, $28.87 million. Estimated cash value, $13.93 million. Powerball, no jackpot winner, that is. The numbers from Wednesday's drawing, 4, 29, 37, 55, 67. The Powerball 10, the Power Play multiplier 4. Jackpot tomorrow night, $82 million. Estimated cash value on that, $39.6 million. Double play, the drawing on Wednesday, the numbers were 2, 15, 44, 60, 68, and the Powerball was 23. Mega Millions, no jackpot winner on the Tuesday night drawing. Those numbers were 10, 16, 50, 60, 61, and the Mega Ball of 17. The estimated jackpot for tonight's drawing, $72 million. Estimated cash value there, $34.3 million. Mississippi Match 5, which we'll come back to in a minute, on a different, happier subject. No jackpot winner from last night's drawing. 11, 17, 20, 28, 33. Estimated jackpot for tonight, $127,000. The Cash 3, Cash 4, Fireball, and Cash Pop games. The $500 Cash 3 game, the midday drawing was 7, 8, 9, right in order. I like that. The evening, 5, 7, and 8. The $5,000 Cash 4 drawing, the midday numbers were 2, 4, 1, and 7. The evening was 8, 1, 9, and 4. Fireball, midday was a 4, evening was a 7, and Cash Pop, the midday drawing, gave us a 14, the evening on the Cash Pop, also a 7. Now, first winner of the 2025 NASCAR Powerball Playoff, a player from Jackson, $15,000 cash prize, and a shot to compete in the National NASCAR Powerball Playoff for $1 million. It's now also a competition. I love it. It's a start of annual promotion, 7 qualifying races, 15 total Mississippi winners. All of them advanced to the National NASCAR Powerball Playoff for a shot at the $1 million grand prize. Last year in 2020, or excuse me, year 4 last, in 2023 in the playoff, West Point native Stephanie Walker won the $1 million prize in the playoffs, which means we need another Mississippi person to win it. The next drawing scheduled for Thursday, April 24th. Another player set to win $8,500 plus a $3,500 early bird bonus. You have to be a Mississippi Lottery insider and reside in Mississippi to enter. You can find more on the bonus promos tab at mslottery.com. Winners, Cash 4. Man, a Jackson man and a Ridgeland man each won $1,350 on Cash 4. A Jackson woman won $3,303 and a Hattiesburg woman won $3,431. That's just on Cash 4. Cash Pop, a Starkville man and a Tupelo woman each won $1,000. Match 5, told you we get back to that. 3 winners, no jackpot winner, but you can still take home some decent money here. Jackson woman won $800. That was a ticket she bought in Biloxi, by the way. Columbus man won $1,000, and also a Brookhaven man won $1,000 on match 5. The Blistering Hot Sevens, that's a $10 scratch-off ticket. A Renzi man won $5,000 on a ticket bought in Corinth. And the $20 200X Cash Blitz got a couple of winners there, both of them for $1,000. Fulton man won $1,000 on a ticket bought in Fulton. Crawford woman won $1,000 on a ticket that she bought in Columbus. The winners are coming fast and furious right now, and I really want you to be listening to this one morning when we do the lottery rundown and go, hey, that was my win. That was me. You could be on the radio and not care because you've got a pocket full of cash. That's what happens when you play the Mississippi Lottery. So go ahead, get out and get your ticket for that. And don't forget, we talk about drawings and jackpots, and we focus on the jackpots quite a bit. As you heard from that list right there, the Match 5 winners, the Cash Pop winners, the Cash 4 winners, those still put some major bucks in their pockets, even without winning the actual jackpot itself necessarily. So it's hard to argue. Play the Mississippi Lottery today. Coming up next, we have news from SuperTalk Mississippi News right after Fox News, and then hour number 2 of Mornings with Richard Cross with Dave Hughes. Need that in parentheses and tinier letters right after the title of the show. Stick around. It's all on the way, and boy, somebody has reared their ugly head again. We'll talk about that next hour. Keep it here.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. Mornings with Richard Cross, Dave Hughes in on Fridays as always. And this hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough. If you're struggling with HR and benefits and payroll and all of the little moving parts, the tiny things that you need to get right to keep your business humming along, well, you're not the only one. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide you with a full range of employer services and provide you a custom plan that fits you and your business. You can call today at 601-206-7966 to find out more, or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Ashley Edwards will join us from the coast, get his take on some things, including the tariff situation, which seems to be changing by the hour, has been all week, ever since Wednesday, and that's not going to slow down anytime soon, I don't think. I do want to mention one thing before we get to the surprise guest that has popped back up politically. In case you didn't hear, Cal-Maine Foods, one of the, I think it is the top egg producer in America. It's a Mississippi company based in Ridgeland. They're being investigated because, well, they're saying that they jacked their prices up to take advantage of the egg shortage. That's what they're accused of. They had record profits, but they sold a record number of eggs. Those two kind of go hand in hand, don't they? So we'll just let that process play out and see what happens. I just wanted to mention it since that is something that some people, I've mentioned this to a couple of folks this week, and they weren't aware that Cal-Maine Foods was a Mississippi company. They're headquartered in Ridgeland. So yes, we claim them. We count them. So we'll see. The price of eggs is still high. It goes up every year at this time, though. I will say it's higher than it's been Not trying to discount that, but we're a week out from Easter. A week from this Sunday is Easter. Eggs, yeah, they sell quick this time of year, every single year. Now, yesterday, the House passed the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act is the one, you may have heard something about it already, that requires ID, proof of citizenship, to be allowed to vote in federal elections. You would think they were lining people up and shooting them if you listen to the Democrats about this. You had, I think, 4 Democrats that joined in on this and voted for it.
I love some of the framing, and I'm going to let you have it back. But the House, this is one of the articles out there. The House passes a bill that could make it harder for married women to vote. Voting rights groups warn that the SAVE Act could curtail women voting. Married women at that. So,
Yes, specifically married women. Yesterday, who surfaced from the depths of the swamp but Hillary Clinton? Of all people, I thought we were done. I thought we had played that particular thing out. No, here comes Hillary again. I'm still relevant. Look at me. Saying that this was going to prevent married women from being able to vote because the name on their ID doesn't match the name on their birth certificate. Well, several things here. Number one, I think that is Hillary Clinton admitting as a married woman who took her husband's last name that she's too stupid to sort out her identification paperwork. Number two, you have to provide all of that stuff, all of the proper documentation to get a real ID, which you need to have less than a month from now if you're going to get on a plane to go anywhere. If you've got a real ID, if you have a Mississippi license, the upper right-hand corner, there'll be a gold star in a circle. That means you've got a real ID, you're good. That's really going to be accepted. If not, you can bring your birth certificate and your marriage license. Problem solved. No one in all the decades has had a problem as a woman when they married and they took their husband's name, identifying themselves as that person on the birth certificate. This has been a non-issue for decades and decades and decades, centuries. But now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that this is a non-starter and this is the Republicans attacking married women. No, just the ones that don't want to take the time to get it swapped. I'm sorry. My wife has appropriate ID. It took about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, even non-citizens, illegals can get Social Security numbers. So what are we really worried about here, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's not that hard. Obviously, we're handing them out like candy at Halloween.
I mean, you can go into a bank and get a bank card by being an illegal. You can get a driver's license being illegal. You don't even have to buy car insurance, from my understanding, but you and I do. But we're worried about not being able to, a married woman not being able to vote because they can't identify her.
But I want to make sure that we make this clear. This attack, and I hesitated to even use that word because it's not substantial enough to rise to the level of actually being an attack, is proof positive that they have nothing else to go with. This is their best shot that they're taking at the SAVE Act this time around. Think about the poor, stupid married women that can't figure out how to get their ID swapped. You're not thinking about them. At what point, and I personally am in the camp that we don't say anything. Just let them keep going. It's fine. But at some point, somebody has to step forward to the Democrats in general and Hillary Clinton in specific and say, look, assuming that the people you're trying to get on your side are dumb as dirt might not be a winning strategy. This might not be the way to win them over to your side. There is not a married woman in America who is seeing this and going, oh my goodness, I won't be able to vote anymore. I got married and changed my last name. This is a process and this is a thing that has been worked out for a long time. But again, it's kind of heartening because if this is the best they've got, if this is the biggest criticism they can bring to bear on this, they don't have anything. They got nothing. I mean, they never did, but even their false flag attacks, if you want to call it that, against sensible legislation are getting dumber. They're getting less. Well, they hold less water. You know, the other thing that we have heard about the SAVE Act, because this has been going for a while, they've tried it once before, was this, and they're still using this some too, it's going to disenfranchise millions of people, including immigrants. And I'm like, whoa, it's kind of the point. If you're a legal immigrant and you have become a citizen, congratulations, you can vote. It's no problem. Welcome to the country. If you're an immigrant still working through the process, you don't get to vote yet. If you just clambered through a hole in the fence in Texas, you definitely don't get to vote. You can't be disenfranchised. You can't report something stolen that you never earned, that you never owned. That's the other argument they have. So the arguments get dumber. What do you think? I want to get your take, Lance, over under. Last approval rating I saw for the Democratic Party in America was 21%. Over under, where do you think that's going to wind up? Because it's not done dropping yet, I don't think.
Well, you got who's your leader? Who is the brain trust heir apparent of the party? You got people saying AOC and Jasmine Crockett and Booker. And, I mean, if that's the best that you're rolling out, I don't see that the approval ratings are probably going to get too high. I mean, that's just my gut feeling.
I think you're missing a nuance there. Yeah. It's not the best that they're offering. It's the best they've got.
Oh, no. I mean, when Tim Walz is the best you got, jazz fingers, and nobody really wants to throw him up there, so you're looking at Plan B. You know, I mean, that's kind of where you are. And then you got Hillary positioning, relevancy, and then Obama, the former first lady. Curious how that's all going to play out over the next couple of years, because a leader will emerge. Just don't know who it's going to be.
And I will say on AOC, I will have to echo, and I might not get it exactly word for word, but I'll have to echo Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana right down here.
Oh, yeah, I love that
on a panel discussion, who said, I think AOC should be the leader of the Democratic Party. She's the reason they have instructions and warnings on toothpaste tubes.
That was that Wednesday, man. That was great. Yeah,
it was fantastic, and it was accurate. But if that's the best they got, we probably shouldn't sweat a whole lot. We continue on this Friday morning on Mornings here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Next.
From the Venable Glass Track.
Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Mornings. Dave Hughes in for Richard Cross on this Friday. Want to mention the big thing that happened yesterday afternoon. I'm sure you saw the news coverage about it. The helicopter crash in New York City. Helicopter went down in the Hudson River. It was the head of the Spanish division of Siemens, which is an industrial computer and automation company over in Europe. He, his wife, his three small children, and the pilot, all six went down, all six lost their lives. Have you seen the video that has since been released of the actual crash when it happened? It's interesting because...
Did it start falling apart?
Yes, it was falling apart, basically. And the cockpit, the main portion of the helicopter, falls down, splashes down. And then you can see the rotor still spinning come down over to the side a few seconds later and also splash down in the river. The rotor, the entire chassis of the rotor, not just the blades, the whole thing came off of the helicopter. As it was falling, there were other pieces of metal and debris falling off of the helicopter as it came down that you can very plainly, very clearly see. And as a result, let the conspiracy theories begin. I have seen so far presented with dead seriousness that it was aliens, that it was the government, that it was a hit. I don't know why anybody would be determined to take out the head of the Spanish division of a European country while they're taking a tour in New York. But that's a big theory going around. All of these theories. Number one, it's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. Sometimes accidents happen. There is a thing where a helicopter, if it does the wrong maneuvers, it can actually get what I believe they call a bump. I'm sure I'm wrong about that, and somebody will correct us on the C Spire text line, where the rotor kind of on its pole kind of rocks back and forth, and it'll just break off. That could be what happened. We have no idea what was going on with the maneuvering of this helicopter ahead of time. We've got the flight path, but that's it. Can we stop? And let me preface this by saying, and I think everyone knows this, I'm a conspiracy theory guy. I love a good conspiracy theory. I'll dig into one. We've done entire shows on Bigfoot before. Trust me, I'm a fan of this kind of stuff. Can we at least, before we launch into coming up with the most out there theories of what happens, stop and just acknowledge that 6 people died here? Our knee-jerk immediate response to everything right now is immediate outrage, even if we have to make something up. It could have been this, and I am furious. What? That just seems like an illogical reaction to something that, no matter what caused it, was a horrible tragedy. I have heard 10 seconds worth of coverage of how horrible this was, and about 17 hours of, and here's why it infuriates me. This happened. It could have been this. It could have been that. Can we start focusing on what's important first, get that taken care of, and then move on to the theories? My answer to that question is no, probably not. That's not the culture as it exists. That's not society as it is currently constituted. We are a people constantly scanning the horizon, trolling the depths, desperately looking for something to be upset about. If we're having a good day and we're not upset about anything, well, number one, you're going to get bombarded with about 50 options. But if you don't pick any of those, you'll keep looking until you find something. That's the way we're all operating right now, and it's not healthy. It also forces us psychologically to focus on things that ultimately aren't as important on the things that we're just kind of brushing off and blowing by in our rush to explain why we think something is wrong and we're outraged and offended. We don't give anything time to breathe, is what I'm saying here. You have to have a little bit of patience in something and anything, but it's all hot takes. Lance, everything is a hot take now.
Everybody is pretty woke in that way, right? I mean, you're always looking for the conspiracy, always looking for something. And I understand. I mean, there's been some craziness too. Yeah, yes. Assassination attempts against the president, things of that nature. And you really, the drones flying around everywhere, you really haven't heard much about that again. And then, I can understand with the plane crashes, the helicopter crash, those things, you want to say, hey, something's wrong. And maybe it was just maintenance. Maybe it was, the helicopter, fell apart. It maybe not really anybody's fault or some conspiracy, just because the guy was the head of Spain's Siemens op. and all that. It just, to me, you look at that video and that thing fell out of the sky. I mean, I've never seen anything like that, honestly. Just,
like a rock.
Just like somebody was skipping a rock almost, and it ran out of gas and just, sinks. And just heartbreaking because that family was just sitting there saying, hey, let's go for a chopper ride. Let's go check out the city. And their lives end in a tragedy like that. And as you said, there'll be time for all of the speculation, but, at the moment, a family has lost their lives. And it's time to mourn that, and hopefully they'll be able to figure out what went wrong with that chopper. But, I heard some things saying that type of helicopter, again, is not necessarily the most tourist friendly, logging heavy hours and those things without immense maintenance, that there are other choppers that are better for that type of endeavor than the Bell, that this was more of a kind of hobby craft that, super rich people would have as a second type of chopper maybe. Again, I'm not an expert. I can only say, though, that I've talked to quite a few people that have been in the world of helicopters, and it is a extremely dangerous profession to be a helicopter pilot. And the maintenance level of those things is outrageous. At least with an airplane, you're moving forward. It's almost like you can glide in, Helicopter, when you run out of the lift, the opposite happens. And so it's no skipping around or sliding in many cases. This was an example of when it goes wrong on a helicopter, it goes wrong.
It goes completely wrong, exactly. And this was a helicopter being operated by a tourist company, New York Helicopters. That's what they did. They took people up on sightseeing trips around New York City. The family, I just saw the picture a few minutes ago. The family posed for a picture in front of the helicopter before it took off. They were just out for a fun day. They decided, hey, let's go take the kids around and let them see all of New York.
And he obviously, the patriarch, in a position of immense power with a huge multinational company. Siemens is enormous all over America too, but I just can't see the conspiracy side of that, and I'm like you, I love a good conspiracy. I love digging into something and trying to find all the moving parts, because it's not really a conspiracy if it's true. It's just one of those things but in the end, we all have opinions, right? And we can all come up with whatever you want to say, well, this is why this happened, that, and this over here and that. Speculation is sometimes the thing you want to stay away from. Just stick to the facts. And right now, there aren't a lot of them.
The problem is, these days, speculation is presented as fact.
I think that's a great point.
So many people don't have the filter to tell the difference on their own without being explicitly told, now, this is just my opinion. This is just a guess. What if? They can't filter it that way. So we wind up with people running around convinced of something that even the person that originally said it doesn't know if it's true or not.
Sure.
That's part of our problem. Right
well,
now.
I dealt with that so much in finance, too, because, you're always wanting to find the truth, and you'll have an opinion that is presented as fact. That's one side of the aisle. Then you have an opinion presented as fact. So the other side, one saying buy, the other one saying sell, and then you have somebody in the middle saying hold, and, it's all presented as fact. And it's not. It's opinion. And a lot of disclaimer isn't there anymore to say, hey, this is just an opinion. These are not facts. And I dealt with that for a long time. It was very frustrating because, you really want to find the most, honest opinion, the most honest, but you want somebody to disclose this is an opinion, this is editorial. And that's what we do every day. We try to present you with facts, and but, we're not a news team here.
Yeah, we also very much editorialize all day.
Exactly.
That's literally the job description. It's opinion radio. And I think we make that fairly clear, but it's just disturbing to me, and it's one more symptom of part of the sickness that has infected America across the board, all sides, both sides of the aisle.
Need Ipecac.
We need a trip behind the woodshed. That's what we need. Just general blanket trip behind the woodshed. When we come back, we will not bring up woodsheds with Ashley Edwards from the Gulf Coast, former president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. We'll talk.
Segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
We both knew it was just a matter of time. Living our dreams, oh, you on top. My mind is aching, Lord, it won't stop.
Welcome back to Mornings. Dave Hughes in for Richard Cross today, and joining us now, the former president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, SuperTalk Mississippi News column contributor, and just a really smart guy down on the Gulf Coast. Ashley Edwards joins us. Ashley, how you doing this morning?
Hey, I'm doing great, Dave. It's so nice to see you this morning.
I know. Haven't talked to you in a few minutes. Everything going good down there?
You know, going great. It's a beautiful spring day here on the coast already, so couldn't be off to a better start.
Now, having said that, we're going to immediately shift over to not a better start. I don't think we could ever possibly define the tariff situation in the stock market over the last week as a better start to anything. It's been a week, hasn't it?
You know, it has been a week. Very interesting week, in fact, Dave. You know, and I think the thing that the huge red flag that I saw that transpired as the week went on, and ultimately what I think that led to the Trump administration really pulling back very quickly was when you started seeing what happened in the bond markets. And, you know, a lot of people may not understand exactly what that entails or what that means. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, American debt, bonds, treasuries, has always been the leading safe harbor for parking money or investment in the world, especially owned by world governments. Countries like Japan have a tremendous amount of their wealth invested in American debt. And as we woke up 2 mornings ago, what we started seeing happening, for example, was Japan selling off their American debt because of their lack of confidence in the sustainability and the safety of American debt going forward. That is quite literally something that we have never seen happen before. And when those things started happening, I think alarm bells really started going off in the White House. You know, and I think, let me just say this, Dave, I don't want to say that to be critical of the position that the administration has taken. I mean, I think most reasonable people can look at the narrative that the Trump administration has put out about the fact that we have a broken trade system in the world, that America has gotten the short end of the stick, that things are fundamentally unfair, that countries have taken advantage of the United States. All of those things I completely agree with. I think they're 100% true. I think people on the left or the right would be hard-pressed to not agree with them. The difference is in the approach to how you solve that. And there's no question that the Trump administration wanted to inject that situation with some very harsh chemotherapy to work very quickly. And in doing so, it started creating instability and reverberations throughout the market. And so what we saw this week, I think, is arguably one of the most serious things that we've seen happen in the world financial markets in a generation.
I think you're exactly right. And I would also say, though, and I want to give the Trump administration full credit for something that they never seem to get credit for, and it's this. Instead of just blindly sticking to their guns and moving forward as it was, they saw that and they reacted and they adapted and they changed, which kind of turned things around a little bit. And I just don't feel like that kind of attitude and that kind of approach that we're getting from the Trump administration on these things is getting enough attention. Try something. If it's not working, well, okay, we got to try it a different way now. And that's kind of the way we're feeling our way forward in this, do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think most people's expectation was that they would stick to their guns. And let's face it, in high-level politics like a presidential administration, when you take an immediate and abrupt change of direction, there has to be some really good legitimization behind that, because there is no administration, left or right, that wants to be seen as wishy-washy or not committed. And so what they did, I think, is worthy of praise, because they could have very well just tried to stick the course. And I think most of the financial experts in the world would agree that we were getting to a place very quickly that you could have had some real disruption. The market is a forward-looking force. The people always believe that the market is sort of reacting in real time to what's happening and that it is, all over the place. And it is to some extent, but those reactions really are not about what's happening in the moment. It's about taking what's happening in a moment and then projecting what the long-term results of that are going to be. And so with that forward-looking focus, the market started seeing these chips falling, and they reacted very strongly. And at least up until that point, it had appeared that the Trump administration was sort of saying, look, the markets are a roller coaster. They're going to be up. They're going to be down. We're not watching exactly what the markets are doing, and we're not reacting to that. But I think when it went from the stock market to the bond market, that's when they had to take a deep breath and say, we've got to do something responsible here and make sure this doesn't get out of hand.
Okay, a little bit too much. Let's ease back off the gas a bit, which is basically what happened. And I think you make a great point there about the markets being forward-looking. And we're talking about bonds specifically. The indexes that people look at on the bonds are the 3-year yield, the 5-year, the 10-year yield. We're talking about looking a decade down the road, and it's affecting those markets today because of what they think is going to happen in 10 years based on what's happening now. So I think you make a great point about that by bringing that up. And it's one of those things, I'm the first one to admit, I don't really understand the bond market. I do on a very baseline level, but it's a lot more complicated. All of this is a lot more complicated than I think we like to admit it is sometimes. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely fair. I don't know if anybody fully can tell you that they understand all of the dynamics that move these markets. As you said, world economy is incredibly complex. It's got so many different moving parts. It doesn't bow down to any administration of one nation or one country. It's so much bigger than everything. But from that standpoint, when you see things happening on a global scale, and look, at the end of the day, America knows that it has to figure out a way to maintain the American dollar as the reserve currency for the world and American debt as the safe harbor for the world and for its governments. And when we started to see that retreat very quickly in a historic way, Trump administration took action. And to your point, they deserve credit for adjusting and pivoting when all of the signs dictated that it was time to do something different.
Well, and I equate it, and I realize this is a charitable filter I'm putting on it possibly, but I equate it to the economy was the equivalent of a hysterical woman in an old movie. So the Trump administration walked up and slapped it. Basically yes. Is what happened to try to calm it down a little bit. Because that is calmness, especially in the terms of the markets, is relative. And if you're going along and things are not going the worst in the world, but they're not going the best in the world, it's just not a really good look overall. And then all of a sudden you got a week or two of absolute chaos. When you back away from the chaos back to like it was, all of a sudden it doesn't look so bad anymore. And that I wonder if that's part of the thinking that went into this.
I think it probably is to some extent. I think that they were getting hammered. I mean, this was not just the left that was hammering the Trump administration. I mean, you saw senators dropping like flies, Republican senators dropping like flies off of the tariff bandwagon. Look, uncertainty is a killer in business, and uncertainty is a killer in the markets. And I think the continuing issue here, even despite the Trump administration sort of taking a step back, is it's still very difficult for the markets to predict what is going to happen next. And so as long as we have this type of uncertainty, it's unlikely we're going to see some sort of a big rally. Now, a lot of the Wall Street firms are already saying, we're either going to be in a recession or we are already in a recession. I sort of chuckle at that sometimes when Wall Street firms say that like it's a bad thing, because we all know there are a lot of investors that love to see a recession because it's a tremendous buying opportunity for them. I mean, it is, these sort of low valleys in the market is where people make all of their profits by buying low and selling high. And so there are a whole lot of folks that wouldn't mind to see the market to retreat from its historic highs. I don't think that is what was driving a lot of this. I really think that when the bond markets started getting really dangerous for sort of the sustainability of American debt, that's when everyone sat up and took notice. But there's also no question Trump has got a lot of folks in his ear, a lot of people with competing interests and competing philosophies. And I think he's hearing from the Peter Navarros on one side of the equation. He's hearing from bank executives and large company CEOs on the other side of the equation. And there's kind of no question which one won out here.
We're up against a break. Can you hang with us?
Sure. Be happy to.
Ashley Edwards will continue talking to him on Mornings next on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day, all on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, you're sorry once again. You want me to take you back once more. You say what you told me once before. Walk softly on this heart of mine.
Welcome back, SuperTalk Mississippi Mornings. Dave Hughes here, Ashley Edwards joining us from the Mississippi coast on the Gulf of America. And we are talking financial stuff. I just saw that the wholesale inflationary data was released this morning, and apparently it came in lower than expected, which would kind of indicate possibly we're in a deflationary stance, not inflationary. It's kind of a good and a bad thing, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that the first goal of the administration has been to try to lower inflation. I mean, let's face it. They are attacking a lot of long-standing problems that they didn't create and that have existed in the world for decades. At the end of the day, they've been very aggressive. I would argue that sometimes it's important to keep the main thing the main thing. I mean, I think a lot of reasonable people can disagree about this last election in terms of what was the motivating factor. I tend to look at it from the standpoint of usually the simple answer is better. And I think a simple way of saying it would be Donald Trump was put back into office because people didn't like the price of eggs. And so that really was job one. And, the difficulty that I think you get into when you understand what the motivating factor was. And of course, there are many others. I mean, there are certainly others out there. But the economy, when the economy is bad and the American people are feeling the crunch, oftentimes you will see sweeping political change in Washington in an election cycle. And that is exactly what we saw here. Now, the fundamentals of the economy had generally been moving in the right direction, but the costs that inflation were taking out of people's pocketbooks ultimately is what motivated them to get out to the polls and vote. And so with what we've seen happening over the last week, with people seeing their 401ks retreating, with people starting to, with the public narrative starting to focus on the increased price of goods, let's face it, so many things that we consume every day are not manufactured domestically. And so, you're going from the price of eggs being high to potentially the price of everything being high. And that was sort of working against the progress that was being made in terms of conquering this inflation that it ultimately hit. So we're in a messy place right now as it relates to these various considerations.
And I think that's the one lesson to take away from this. We need to quit deciding that we're sure about what's about to happen, because I don't think anybody can 100% firmly say what's about to happen. We don't know where we're headed at this point. So far, seen some good moves, but we have to play the entire game to see what happens, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there again, I hate that so many things in our world now are cast through a very partisan lens. If Trump is for it, the Democrats must be against it. But I think you have to give the Trump administration some credit here. Bernie Sanders, for example, I mean, he drops a bill in the Senate every year trying to create massive tariffs on China because he realized that China is a currency manipulator and they don't play by the rules that they've agreed to. They steal intellectual property left and right. There's no question that they are a bad actor on the world scene, especially as it relates to trade. And Democrats have pounded that message home for a long time. Well, I guess Bernie Sanders is technically an independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats. So it isn't as if this is a one-party position. I think there is bipartisan agreement on the fact that China has not been a fair actor, that other countries have taken advantage of the United States. Oftentimes, the difference is in what the proposed approach is. But to Trump's credit, what the approach has historically been is sort of do nothing. And I think a lot of people recognize that. And, the great fallacy in Washington, Dave, is always the idea that if we simply do nothing, there will be no cost, because there is going to be a cost, both real and political, if we do something. But I think what we all know is the absolute truth, and that is there is a cost to doing something. There is also a cost, often far greater, to doing nothing. And the Trump administration is trying to do something. And that's very different than what we've seen historically, in which we've had this sort of do-nothing stance, whether it was in Democrat administrations or Republican administrations in the past.
Well, and you touched on something that I was actually nibbling around the edges of it earlier this hour, and it's been a sticking point for me for a while. To me, the biggest problem facing us in America today, politically, societally, culturally, is absolutism. Everything is 100% absolute this way or that way or good or bad. This is a really gray universe we live in, and we seem to have completely lost sight of that fact, and it's a little bit annoying to me. I'm not going to lie.
No question. We do ourselves a disservice when we try to paint everybody into one.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Motors crank, no. But I'm pretty good at drinking beer. So hand me one more, that's what I'm here for. I'm built for having a ball. I love the nightlife, I love my Bud Light, I like them cold and tall.
Welcome back. Super Talk, Mississippi Mornings. In the last hour of Mornings with Richard Cross with Dave Hughes, brought to you by MWG Employer Services. You can call 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com to find out more. We didn't have time. We got cut off by the break. We didn't even have time for Ashley to finish what was a very good answer to what I was saying, but that's the way it works sometimes when you get two guys that don't know how to shut up having a conversation.
Well, the bond market is such a fascinating world. I worked in it for a long time. Before, there was these, you had big bond funds, obviously, and those were very popular, but, using the individual bonds in increments of 5s and 10s and 20s, building bond ladders and income for clients. I had a great working knowledge of the fixed income markets, and they can be very confusing. But one thing that I wanted to say about it, because I don't know if it was covered, is, you're loaning money. When somebody floats a bond, whether it's a government or corporation or municipality, whether they're borrowing money from you, whoever you is. Okay. They're offering you a fixed rate of income on that bond sold at, say, $1,000. That's par. That bond can go up in price and then yields go down. In other words, your income always stays the same, but the yield on the bond adjusts as if the income, as price of the bond goes up, because there's high demand, then the income yield must go down. But you're still going to make your 5% of $1,000, let's say. So that's the inverse relationship is bond prices go down, yields go up. But remember, there's always something that must securitize that bond. And when those assets start getting hit, values of bonds go down. And that means at some point you're going to have a capital call, whether you're a government, whether you're a corporation, a municipality. And that is what spooked everybody. As the equity markets dropped, usually you're using high-quality assets to create leverage. So let's just say I bought a bunch of General Electric, and I could borrow against that, say, 90%, because it's a very predictable stock with a solid dividend, all the qualities that you look. So let's say the bank you work with says, yeah, we'll let you borrow 90% of your $100,000 purchase of GE. Well, you go borrow $90,000 and buy a bunch of bonds or go buy more securities, so on and so forth. So there's this trail of securitization. Well, once the original asset starts getting kicked in the you-know-whats, everything else is affected by that. And bonds are the most volatile in that regard because you've created leverage, right? You don't have the money and you've borrowed the money. But what you use to securitize it, it may be taxes, could be a general obligation, could be revenue from a amphitheater or whatever type of bond. But if that asset starts dropping in value, the value of that bond's price goes down and everybody starts freaking out. And that's part of what you're dealing with here. As I've said for a couple of weeks, what worries me most about any of this is the ability for us to pay debts, whether it's the country, a city, a corporation, because that is what's going to cause the biggest problem. Equities dropping is one thing, but knowing how things are securitized and levered, so to speak, if the assets being used to create leverage are going down, the debt becomes less valuable, and you're going to have to come up with some cash. So, as Trump said, people were getting a little queasy because they knew this was coming. You're getting a little yippy, getting a little queasy. They knew that this was about to happen. And that means you either got to go back to the bank and refinance everything, whether it's a government, a municipality, or what, because you cannot make the payments that are coming due because the assets securitizing it have gone down, so on and so forth. So you have this contagion effect. And that's what we saw back to 07 through 09. It was mostly through mortgage-backed securities. Well, as those housing values start going down a little bit and demands were less, and all of a sudden you've borrowed against all this housing that's now not worth as much as you originally borrowed. So you have a capital call coming. And most real estate companies couldn't make that. And most bond companies and people like Lehman Brothers were holding assets that were going down in value. And they levered that. Remember, they borrowed heavily against that to gamble. So when those assets started going down, everything else they were doing was affected by that. And it creates an absolute mess. And the one worry, I will say this, when bonds, I'll say it like look at the inversion of the yield curve. If the 30-year bond or the 15 is paying less than a 3-year, 2-year, 5 of those, that's when you really got to worry about some major problems in the bond markets, which will infect everything across the globe. This is a globalist economy. And that's the way it is. So, things that happen over here do affect us over there and vice versa. So, it's just something to pay attention to. The bond markets are generally very insightful in how the actual overall markets work.
Let me just say this. Number one, your knowledge of this whole area is obvious. It's hard earned. It's earned through experience. And it's also extremely depressing to listen to you talk about this because it sounds like, it sounds like we spend all of our lives balancing on a seesaw with one foot on either side of the central support, doing our best desperately to not fall off and knock a tooth out.
I think that's a good way to do it. I mean, investing is speculative in nature, right? You hope it always goes up, but it really is somewhat of a gamble. You're gambling on security and predictability and those things. But I mean, it's like saying I want to put $100 on Ole Miss to beat Tennessee. It's handicapped, right? I mean, but it's still a bet. You're making a bet. And I think working in the investment world taught me that. This is a bet, man. It's going to go one way or the other. We have a tendency to use investing so much. And I believe that you are investing also. But at the same time, you are taking risks by trusting and putting your hard-earned money to work and hoping that the system is functioning as it should. And all of that is a confidence build. You know, you're being built into a confident investor. But then we always got to remember, we are gambling a little bit too. And to understand that and why markets are volatile and why things have such wide swings, a lot of times it's coming back to debt. Almost every time I can say that, you know.
It goes back to what I said last Friday when I commented and said, you know, we got a problem because everybody think number only go up.
Yeah.
That's not the way any of this works. It never has been. It never will be.
I will say my dad worked for AIG, one of the largest companies, insurance companies in the world, and one of the companies that really started us on the downturn in 2007 was AIG and companies like that had said openly, the housing market will never go down. So what did they do? They went and borrowed as much as they could against the mortgage-backed securities that they were writing. In other words, they were the ones writing the mortgage insurance. And then they go out and gamble on that. So, I mean, you know, the reality is things don't go up forever. And if you've taken on too much leverage, you've got too much pin up in the pocketbook, so to speak, you're going to pay a heck of a price for that if anything ever corrects. And we're paying for that a little bit right now. And that's, again, you know, things will come back, but you got to iron out the kinks in the system. And sometimes those are extremely difficult to do. And the last time you had this problem, the government had to step in and print a bunch of money.
Yes, and I suspect the Fed is sitting there watching all of this like a hawk. Mm-hmm. Their exact words yesterday about what has happened this week was that watching everything, and they specifically mentioned including the bond markets, has been instructive. Oh, well, thank you. That'll calm everybody down now. We appreciate the insight.
Well, you know, as interest rates drop, you know, existing bond prices are going to rise. So if you issued a bond at $1,000 a bond at 5%, if interest rates drop, then that means the bond price is going to go up and yield will go down. So that you're still going to make your 5%, but now that $1,000 bond may be worth $1,050. That's a premium. If rates start going up, bond prices go down, and that's where you get discounts. And so, I mean, you know, it is one of the most interesting things in finance, to me, options and bond market. They're very complicated, and average investors generally need to stick to a fund. You know, I mean, that's the way it works, because the exposure to owning 5 bonds of, you know, ABC Corporation or this municipality, and you say, well, nothing ever, you know, a town never goes broke. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
They happen all the time. Jefferson County and Alabama, and they happen all the time. But back when I was doing this, 97.8% of municipal bonds paid off at maturity. So you had a very high probability, but you can pick in that 3% and be wrong. You know, that's the thing. You know, that's the probability. But, you know, municipals were always, to me, something fun because you got tax-free income for your clients and, you know, the probability of them paying off. You could choose certain municipalities that, you know, were very well heeled. That Oxford was one I always seemed to like, and dealing with Flowood and but, you know, you always want to look at those things because it's the ability to pay back, right? I mean, you know, who is a government, how are you paying back the bond? And it's generally from revenue or it's going to be from GDP style things, income taxes, those things. That's how they work.
Yeah, it's not very complicated, and at the same time, it's extremely ridiculously over the top complicated.
And that was a little bit. I mean, that was just kind of a basic, but I mean that hopefully gives direction to understand why markets got spooked and how the contagiousness of that spooking could have really turned into terrible outcomes had Trump probably continued down that path.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Mayor George Flaggs from Vicksburg to talk about the river as we continue through financial class here on Mornings on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Good morning, Mississippi. You're starting your day off right.
Welcome to
Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
I can tell by the way you smile when it's rolling down. Come wash the night time clean. Come roll the scorched ground green. Blow the horn and tap the tambourine.
Welcome back. Mornings on Super Talk, Mississippi. Dave Hughes here, and got something. I don't know if you saw this story or not, Lance, but this is a beaut. Back last week, April 3rd, one of the many tornadoes that swept across the country touched down in an Amish community in Indiana. I'm going to read to you the official National Weather Service Storm Survey Team report for that tornado. Okay? Two likely simultaneous parallel moving tornadoes, the same basic situation we had in Walthall County a couple of weeks ago, moved through. The management, along with a National Weather Service ground survey, found that the first tornado had maximum estimated wind speeds of 100 to 105 miles per hour. Reports from a local provided evidence of several Amish properties that had sustained roof damage, but they were already repaired early in the day.
It's like the movie Kingpin, man. You bring out the community and they're ready to go.
Yeah, they had a tornado that morning, and by the time the National Weather Service could get there to survey the damage, it was all fixed. They're like, oh, no, we're good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That's community there, isn't it?
That's community, but it also raises to me a question. If the Amish community can do that, why can't we do that in other situations where it sometimes takes years to get things fixed and repaired?
Well, because the government loves to grow. It loves to usurp your power. It loves to have the ability to tell you what to do, rather than a community of people that can come to the rescue of others. We saw that back in the early or the mid part of the century, where, you know, the churches and things like that played a much larger role in disaster relief and welfare help and mothers and single mothers of need and things of that nature. And now it's a government entity that does that.
Yes.
You know, so you don't really get as much control with the dollars that are deployed to help those in great need. It's more like sprinkling pennies from a helicopter, you know, that's flying all over the country. You just throw a little here, throw a little there. Sometimes it doesn't work out very well because the solutions are too broad to an extremely myopic problem, I think.
Yes, and I just think this is relevant to us because, again, we've had 78 tornadoes so far this year as of the end of March. There's been more since then, but as of the end of March, it was 78, which was basically double second place in America, 41 in Alabama. This is a problem. Tornadoes, storm damage of all kinds, hurricane season's coming up. I'm sorry I mentioned it, but it's
a reality.
Just a fact. It's coming. It's coming quicker than we wanted to, about, a month and a half, and the season will officially be here. And then we see things happen, and it seems to take a very long time to get things fixed and back up and running. And you've got this Amish community, a tornado, two of them touched down running side by side. One of them went through this community in Indiana, and they had everything repaired before the National Weather Service could get there to look at it to try to determine how strong the tornado was, which almost kind of made that a moot point. Now, I realize it wasn't, I'm sure, like an EF5. It wasn't a catastrophic thing. But at the same time, when's the last time you saw anyone who had damage from a storm and it was repaired the same day?
I don't know if I've ever seen that. I mean, you see the blue tarps on houses and buildings even still in certain parts of the Delta from storms 2 years ago. I'm not being critical. You're right. Yeah. It takes a while. Too long.
I just feel like this is a great example that we can get things done more efficiently. We can get things done quicker. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, the difference between fixing your roof after a tornado today versus in 6 months. Well, it's going to rain between now and 6 months from now, and you got a whole different set of problems that crop up that you've got to deal with.
On a smaller scale, yeah. I mean, that's what happened to us, with our cabin was a tree hit it, knocked a huge hole in it in a major storm, did a karate chop right through it, and putting a tarp on it. 2 days later, obviously, more storms come through, and more storms come through, and more storms come through for 3 days, and that tarp doesn't hold up, and, the interior of your place is absolutely ruined. If you could have fixed it, if you could have gotten, approved quickly and gotten a piece of wood on top of it, but you can't because everything moves so slowly in that process. It really does. It's really slowed down after COVID. I mean, both my parents worked in the insurance world. My dad in the auto claim side, mom with Allstate for 40 plus years. I know a little bit about insurance, and it has slowed down to a snail's pace, especially since COVID, because you divested yourself of a lot of your outside reps that were getting out there, boots on the ground. My mother did that in the latter part of her career with Allstate. She went down to Katrina, lived in a washed out hotel in downtown New Orleans where the second floor was livable. The whole bottom was studs and garbage stacked up everywhere as far as you could see. Did it in Pensacola, and I went there and watched, the people at work with a checkbook out there immediately trying to get people some resolution and allow them to get back to some semblance of normalcy. That's not where we are anymore. It takes an inordinate amount of time, and it's extremely unfair to the people that pay their dang insurance every month to get that kind of slow play and junk. And I'm on a soapbox because it's not right. Get insurance companies, we're paying you. Get to work.
Yes, and I will say this. The biggest difference here was buried in what you were saying just then. Those Amish folks went out there. They didn't wait for permits. Mm-hmm. They didn't wait for approval. They didn't wait for inspections. They fixed the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we have gotten ourselves a little too far in the direction. Yeah, you want quality control. You don't want somebody slapping something up there that's going to cave back in tomorrow and injure somebody. I get that. That makes perfect sense. But it seems like it's a little extreme. It's not as bad as it is out in California, but I still have to wonder if we're not over-regulated to an unnecessary degree on some of these things. Because I'm sorry, if you've got a family who no longer has a roof, I think step one is supposed to be get a roof over their head. Not, okay, we got to fill out this form and we got to do this. And Bob, he's on vacation this week, but next week he'll come check it out and let you know if you're able to go ahead and start working on putting a roof in. But then you got to get an approved person, and they have to fill out this form, and they have to get this. How about we just put a roof on the house and deal with the details later?
Again, dealt with this directly recently. It is, the adjuster outside was an inside adjuster they sent out from Birmingham. You know how long it took to get to Vicksburg area?
Yeah.
Well over a month. Now, I remember the day when a tree hit your house and your agent was at your house in 30 minutes.
Yeah, that day, that hour a lot of times.
Folks, and I hate to say it, but, you're paying for that kind of service and you're not getting that.
Well,
some people still do. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, I was going to say there are some very good insurance agents out there in Mississippi.
This isn't across the board saying everybody's terrible. I'm saying the industry itself has definitely shifted away from face-to-face contact to more and more of the automation. And look, brother, automation doesn't speed it up. Not your claim, from my experience and so many that I've dealt with. It just does not speed it up and get that roof on your house.
This goes back to my pet peeve that I talk about all the time, and I will talk about it until it's no longer something we can talk about. It's a great example on focusing on the process instead of the result you're trying to achieve. I don't care if we touch second base. Let's hit the ball. And then we can sort everything else out later. We're not doing that. We're so focused on the process, we have made it the most important part, not how about it stop raining in my house? And I just think we need to figure out some way to deal with that and address that. That's my thought, and I'm sure I'm going to catch grief for it. But you know what? That just means it's a day that ends in Y. What? Dave's going to catch grief for something he said? Yeah.
Hey, it's a weekend. You can sleep it off, right?
Welcome. I'm going fishing. I don't care. When we come back, well, fishing maybe so-so. Might be pretty good, actually, over in Vicksburg, unfortunately. Mayor George Flaggs joins us the river. She's a-rising. We're going to talk to him coming up next on Mornings. Keep it here.
Hard way to go.
What's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. Mornings on Super Talk, Mississippi. Dave Hughes here. We're going to talk now to the mayor of one of the great cities of the state over there on the mighty Mississippi River, which is kind of flexing its muscles right now, Mayor George Flaggs. Mayor, haven't talked to you in a while. How you doing, sir?
How you doing, Dave? Hadn't talked to you in a while either.
I know it's pretty good so far, but you guys, you got something to deal with the river, don't you?
Well, yeah, we're making preparation. Of course, we've been here before, and we pretty much have a comprehensive plan to put in place, and we've already begun it. And we anticipate that the river will get to about 45.8, and if so, we're ready for it.
Now, if it gets to that level that you're anticipating, what kind of effect will that have on Vicksburg?
Well, it would have some effect because what it does is displace people in our Kings area north of town, and in fact, they started moving out yesterday, anticipation of it, and I think we'll be okay. I was down by the flood wall yesterday. We up about 5 feet down there, and we're ready for it. We may be making some type of announcement next week. I don't know, but we as ready as we can get, Dave.
Well, it's about all you can do in this situation, and hope that the rain starts upriver, because a lot of people don't realize this is being caused by the rains further up the river in the Midwest, right?
Oh, absolutely, and because of that, we have to get the brunt of it, and not only us but Natchez too, and so we hadn't had it in a while, but I think we're ready for it. There's another wall that we can put up, we will put up if we look like it is projected to go higher than 48.5, but if not, we'll just stay right where we are, about 5 feet.
Well, it's never something fun to deal with, but that's just a fact of being on the Mississippi River. And, you talked about Natchez down around Wilkinson County, down in the corner of the state. They've had problems with the Mississippi River rising in the past as well. The Delta, it affects the entire western half of the state when this happens. I know some people might hear it and go, well, it's just the Mississippi River. It doesn't affect much. It affects a lot.
Well, all right, and in fact, it affects a lot of our agricultural area of the state, and we depend on it. And a lot of housing, families are being displaced. But it's unfortunate, but we pray God that it's not as worse as it can be, and we are prepared in Vicksburg.
Oh, that's all you can do. Now, let me ask you, let me change topics just a little bit. How's everything else going in Vicksburg? What do you have going on right now?
Oh, everything's going good. We're announcing some manufacturing. We're announcing a $400 million expansion with about 20 people being hired at Ergon. The growth is finally coming around, and of course I can't announce it yet, but we're about to land a big one. 2 big ones, I would think, and we're beginning to see the growth of this city, and not only the growth in this city, we of course, when you have growth, you have some challenges, and the challenges will be in our housing. We've got to build more houses, and we've got to build them quick.
You've got housing, you've got other infrastructure. When you start bringing more people, more business in, that affects everything, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. And most folks criticize the business aspect of it, but at the same time, when you're growing, and there's a correlation between. And I tell you this: there's a correlation between the growth and development and economic development. I think that they go hand in hand.
Well, it's the old theory about a rising tide raises all ships, which is not the right thing to say with what the river's doing right now, but still it applies economically and business-wise. But these deals that you're talking about, including the ones you can't really reveal anything on yet, as much as I'd love to try to get you into a breaking news thing here, these aren't deals that came up this week. You work on these for a while to make these happen, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what people don't know. It's like hitting a golf ball on a 5-par hole. You hit it, and it don't count until you get in the hole. We're working on it. We're continuing to work on it, and we're beginning to see the fruit of our labor because of that. I work with the state and Governor Reed, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Appropriations Chair, and the Speaker of the House been great to us, and I hope they continue to be good to us, and I think we can grow this part of the country.
Well, and that's the important thing. You got to continue to move forward. And I would bet, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would bet you've got these other deals, one or two, that are coming in the near future. And I'll bet that's not all you've got in the pipeline right now. There's some more even further down the road, I would bet.
Oh, absolutely not. We are on our way, and we've created a pathway to the future. And the good news is that we're finally beginning to see this part of the state grow. And if we continue to see that, we're connecting ourselves with Louisiana. We got a fast rail train coming through. We got some exciting things happening over here in Vicksburg. And if people would be patient and allow us to move forward, I think this administration will do what it has to do.
Well, and you mentioned, talk about it for a second. You just mentioned the high-speed rail coming through. For folks that haven't heard about that, tell them about it.
What it is we're going to have a high-speed rail passenger train coming through. It will start in Atlanta, and it would stop in Jackson, in Vicksburg, and Monroe, and then to Dallas. And the reason for that is because we're trying to get some of the traffic off of Highway I-20 so that we can move faster. We're living in a time of the future. That's the only thing I can say, and that is that we're growing to our need for the first time in a long time.
Well, and that high-speed rail that you're talking about, I think that's going to be a selling point in getting more businesses and more industry to come and relocate in Vicksburg. I would assume you're going to put that in your package once it opens.
Oh, absolutely. And where it's going to be located is ideal. I think where it's being located, one of the places that's been considered is where it used to be. And if that's the case, I think it'll be in a growing area of this town where we can expand. In the downtown area, there's some things we got to do in the Outlet Mall and in Pemberton Mall. We got to get some restaurants here, and I think we have a pathway. I really, really, really believe that we have a pathway to the future.
Let me ask you, without giving up your trade secrets, I don't want you to give away your competitive advantage here, but at the same time, if you could talk to the leaders of other municipalities in the state who are trying to figure out how to get things going and get growth going in their city, in their area, if you have time for one piece of advice for them, what would it be? 2,
1, be patient. 2, build relationship. relationships are so important. I don't care who the president is, who the governor is, who your senator or your state representative is. You got to build relationship, and you must be patient, and you must have a plan. And if you work that plan, I think it'll pay off, just like the one that we started this growth pattern about 6 years ago, and I think it's coming to fruition now.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you and I, when we get a chance to talk here on Super Talk, we've been talking about some of these things for 5-6 years, and now it's starting to pay off.
Absolutely, and I think it's good that the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker of the House is paying a much more closer attention to this part of the state. We have a technology transformation center that is up and is going to be competitive, and now we're beginning to build a port that is going to be competitive to this side of the state.
Mayor George Flaggs of Vicksburg, always enjoy talking to you, sir. Keep up the good work and go eat something good for lunch.
Same here, Dave, and you keep on educating the public.
Doing the best we can, sir. Doing the best we can. Final segment of Mornings on the way next here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
People been asking me, where'd you learn to fly that way? It's over in Vietnam, chasing NBA. The government taught me, and they taught me right. Stay down under the tree line, you might be alright. Treetop flyer.
From the Venom.
Get the inside track on Mississippi politics. Yeah! Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Segment of Mornings on this Friday morning. Dave Hughes here. Always love talking to Mayor Flaggs. He's a great guy, and he's got the right priorities, I think, which is growing his city.
He's the real deal, bud. Let me tell you.
Yeah, he is.
I love going into Vicksburg. I'm over there. I've been going over there my whole life since I was a baby. But under his tutelage and leadership, Vicksburg is just absolutely doing wonderful. Love it. Love the place. He's the real deal. Evander Holyfield loves Vicksburg and is a great leader for his people, which every mayor should be.
Yes, they should. And that's why I asked him for advice for the leaders of other municipalities. Because to me, George Flaggs, in a way, feels like a role model that could be followed. We've got plenty of other mayors, don't get me wrong, that are doing a great job all over the state. But he just seems to flip all the right switches and has the right attitude, the right approach. Again, going back to what I always say, he's focused on results. However we need to get there, that's how we get there. But we're going to get there. That's his attitude. Always has been. Been talking to him for years, and I've enjoyed it every single time. So just wanted to brag on him one more time there because...
Well-deserved brag, too,
You can't brag on good, effective people enough.
No.
In my book.
Hey, Paul, we're talking about George Flaggs. Paul loved George Flaggs. And there's so many... we lost a good one over there, and Hank Burdine... and there's so many great people that I was able to connect with over the time I spent with Paul in that year or so over in Vicksburg. Just really good people, and that's Brian Haydad's hometown. Now, he's a Starkville guy now, but Vicksburg is a wonderful place. It really is. A hidden gem, and there's quite a few of those in Mississippi. I remember as about 12 years old, my grandfather, had a car dealership, and he loved driving, getting that old Oldsmobile diesel. Had some cantaloupes rolling around in the back and watermelons. And we had a watermelon farm down in Smith County. And he'd always have cantaloupes and watermelons rolling around everywhere. And about the middle of the summer, those things that had been in there for about 3 weeks and those cantaloupes would start getting a little ripe, and he'd say, boy, this is when you want to eat them. And then he'd crack one open and spread the salt on it and eat it while we were driving, you know. But at 12 years old, he's like, all right, we're going to take you next summer before you get real busy with baseball and all that, you know. We're going to drive around the state. You pick any city or town or whatever you want to go to, and we're going to do that. I said, yes, sir. You know, and I love my grandfather's just such a wonderful person. Everybody knew him. Well, he got sick with cancer and ended up not able to do it. And years later, you know, he hung on for a while and passed away. But as an honor to him, I've tried to go through every Mississippi town you could possibly. I've been to every county. I know that. I've been to most places. Some I don't know. They've popped up here and there. But Mississippi is such a wonderful place. So many people. I love it. Tom's in Oldsmobile diesel. Yes, that was the car of choice. That was always his demo. And but no, I missed that opportunity. But since, you know, I've always kind of challenged myself, get out, meet Mississippi, see what Mississippi really is. And, you know, I'm just so proud of this state and love it so much and love its people.
Well, you know, I used to do that when I was younger. That was my Sunday afternoon thing. We would have dinner and, you know, lunch, and after everything got wrapped up after church, I would get in my car and I would take off.
You were a Sunday afternoon driver.
Oh, yeah, baby.
I love
now,
this.
you got to remember, you know, gas was like
a penny, yeah.
Yeah, it was a handful of blueberries per gallon is all it cost. So I'd fill up the tank and I would just go find a road I had never been down and drive to see where it took me. Well, one day I started driving and I wound up in Baton Rouge taking back roads. And as I'm coming into Baton Rouge, I look over and I see the bridge over the Mississippi River. And I'm like, you know, I've never been over the bridge.
Not that one.
Go over the bridge. Yeah. So I went over the bridge and I kept driving because I was just enjoying myself. Had my stereo. I was rocking out. Had Boston playing on the speakers. It was a good day.
You were speeding then for sure. Yeah.
And then I looked up a little while later and saw a big sign that said, "Welcome to Texas." I had to pull over and call home to explain I was going to be really late for supper because, 100% the truth, I had accidentally driven to Texas.
Yeah, you were in Tyler, Texas, and didn't even know it, huh?
Yeah, I had no idea. I had absolutely zero idea.
Hey, that's a great day, though. You know, when you have no care in the world, you get in the car and just ride and enjoy the day. It's I love doing that. I really do. Sometimes it's hard to get in the car, but once you get rolling, it's very rejuvenating.
Well, these days for me, it's a lot harder to get back out of the car after I've been in it for a while, but that's more of an age thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's the way it works. Buddy, I have enjoyed this as I always do.
Yeah, I'll see you next Friday, right?
I will be here. I promise
God
nothing.
willing, and if the creek don't rise too much.
Oh, creek's going up.
Yeah, it's going
we
rise.
just talked to George. Trust me, it's going up.
Just not too much, let's hope.
Yeah, if we can keep it localized, I think we'll be in good shape. I will be here. I will not commit to having bells on, but I will be here, and showing up is half the battle, right? Lance, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy yourself. Go pick a direction and start driving until you wind up in Texas accidentally.
I'm going to have to do that.
Got beautiful weather for it this weekend, and we will, if we don't talk before then, if you don't catch my local show on SuperTalk Pike County at 9:06 Monday, I'll talk to you again Friday morning at 6:06. My friend, see you then.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.